Good evening, welcome. You're watching Left, Right and Centre. Let's bring you the very latest on this program. It's a horrific tragedy which has struck Pahalgam, Jammu and Kashmir. 26 civilians, including tourists, have been brutally killed in a terrorist attack. Gunmen linked to the Lashkar-e-Taiba are believed to have been responsible for this. They've opened fire in the serene Baisaran Valley, targeting innocent visitors enjoying a peaceful retreat. The attack has left a nation in mourning. Prime Minister Modi has vowed justice as security forces hunt for the perpetrators. India is grieving, with leaders condemning this horrific act. Our hearts are with the victims' families, praying for the injured. These are images, and let's have those up once again, if we can, of the Home Minister Amit Shah just moments back arriving in Srinagar, being greeted by the Chief Minister Omar Abdullah, security officials, police, Air Force, Army. He's on his way now to the Raj Bhavan. They'll be looking very closely at the situation. We expect the Home Minister to be at the site of the massacre at some stage early tomorrow morning. What happens now, that's something that'll to which there are no immediate answers. So we'll be tracking the story throughout this hour. Later on the program, at NDTV exclusive, the US Second Lady Usha Vance in conversation with my colleague Harsha Kumari Singh. So we'll be having that later on this program. But we're going to stick with the very latest situation on the ground. I'm joined by Lieutenant General Ata Hasnain. General Hasnain, thanks very much for being with us. Could we bring up General Hasnain, please? All right. It seems that that I don't have talkback, and we don't have the interview at this stage. All right. We've got General Hasnain. Thanks very much, sir, for being with us. General Hasnain, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you perfectly.
All right, sir. Great. General Hasnain, let's just deal with this from a matter-of-fact perspective. In a situation like this, there's been a massacre. What is the first thing that security forces would be doing?
Well, Vishnu, first of all, let me start by expressing my very, very deep regret for this terrible, terrible tragedy which has happened, which to my mind is even more serious than Uri or Pulwama or anything like that. I mean, we have seen civilians, tourists, a communal angle, everything targeting being done. This is targeting the whole of India. That's the start point of it. At this point, I can say the area where it happened, let me first describe this area where it happened. This is off towards the east of Pahalgam into the mountains. This area is generally called Baisaran, and it's also known as the Switzerland of Kashmir. It's an area where tourists love to go. There are glades and meadows and things like that. Which is why it makes me think that this is a replica of what happened on the 7th of October 2023 when Hamas targeted the gathering across the Gaza boundary inside Israel. Almost a copycat kind of a action. 3 to 4 terrorists were probably involved here, and they've gone ahead and done everything possible, which is dastardly. They've singled out the men, they've singled out communally, they've singled out the Hindus separately, and thereafter, I'm not sure even about the number of casualties, etc. Obviously, this is the area of the Amarnath Yatra base camp. This is the area, general area of the base camp. It's the area which is dominated normally by the army, by the CRPF, etc. Just around a month after this period that we are talking now, because the Yatra starts only in the early period of July. So this is the period, and targeting this is sending home a very clear message also against the Amarnath Yatra, discouraging tourism, discouraging the Yatra, sending home a communal message to India. Everything which can be thought about. What the forces would be doing. Look at the timing of this entire situation. Question. What the forces would be doing at this time is attempting to cordon off that area. Now it's very, very difficult. This is a forested area. This is a part of the Kishtwar range. On the other side of the mountain range lies Warwan. This is the same area where the 5 tourists, the foreign tourists were taken in 1995, if you remember, the Al-Firan incident, we have taken towards the Baisaran Valley. This is the same area, approximately the same area where this has happened. So you will find at the moment operations of a cordoning off generally going around this time, search and destroy operations also being undertaken.
General, let's look at the timing of what's taken place. The US Vice President over here I recall a terrorist attack taking place when Bill Clinton had visited India in the past. The Pakistani Army Chief, General Asim Munir, said that Kashmir is India's jugular. Kashmir is Pakistan's jugular a few days ago. And of course, just in a couple of months from now is the Amarnath Yatra, Pahalgam being the longer route. Could you tie together these three strands?
See, there's no doubt about it. I was myself there on the 19th of March at Avantipur when the incident happened as the visit of President Bill Clinton. Chittisingpura, 36 Sikhs were gunned down. And those days, 1999, when terrorism was at its peak, it was usually said that the Lashkar-e-Taiba normally did a dastardly act to show the flag and sort of project that it had come into an area and started dominating that area. So that was the kind of messaging which was going on. Also, internationally, the message going on that Kashmir was definitely not under the control of the Indian government at that particular time. Now, if you link that with the visit, not only firstly of the US Vice President to Delhi, also the visit of the Prime Minister to Saudi Arabia, the coming tourist season coming up, the initial portions of that, a large number of people, I'm told almost 8 lakh people who have visited the Tulip Garden in Srinagar. Everything was obviously going well, except for maybe a slight aberration which was in Kathua. Anyway, that was also generally under control. The attempt, it seems, is to project that all is not well, and that the 5 years after the abrogation of Article 370, while the government of India, the Indian Army, the security forces have all got together and got the situation under control, the projection or the attempt is to project that things are not under control. That is where the tussle is.
General Hasnain, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but it seems clear that India will respond. Obviously, this is not an instant response. It doesn't work that way, but it would be calibrated. And we've seen in the past that there is precedent for this with the Balakot attack and all of that. Do you believe we are headed in that direction potentially?
Vishnu, it is a little early to surmise that, but I would generally go along with your rationale. I would say this is bigger than Pulwama almost, because as I've already said in the beginning, this is not just targeting a set of military people or paramilitary people or something like Uri. This is about India. This is about Indian people, civilians in an area, Amarnath Yatra, all this when you put together. Obviously, it hits India very hard. And I would say, yes, I would go along with you to say, no knee-jerk reactions, but definitely a well-considered, comprehensive reaction response will possibly be required.
I think the other big aspect of this is the attack on tourists. That's not something that has happened at a tourist center for a very long time. Civilians have, of course, been killed very sadly, even in the last 1 year. But the fact that you've got tourists, apparently even foreign tourists, who've been gunned down in this manner, that certainly crosses a different set of red lines, right?
There's no doubt about it. The last time we heard of civilian tourists of this nature being targeted, specifically targeted, was when in 2017, in the Amarnath Yatra, a bus was targeted with a couple of pilgrims in that. That was the last time it deliberately happened. Thereafter, we have seen it in ones and twos, perhaps some migrant labor and people of that nature. People who cannot really easily defend themselves. Traffic policemen, single policemen on duty, territorial army soldiers. These were the kind of targets that were normally considered. But all of a sudden, out of the blue, looking at such large numbers and having no remorse about it, it seems something which is completely out of the blue.
All right. We have a grid which works in Jammu and Kashmir. There is intelligence, there is police, there's the Army, Air Force, other agencies as well. Typically, in a situation like this, how would they be working together to look for these terrorists and initiate an encounter?
See, Vishnu, this works under the Unified Command overall. Both the Valley and the Jammu region have their respective Unified Command elements, in the sense there are joint consultation kind of bodies of the security forces, and there's one unified command which meets at Srinagar with all the corps commanders, the Director General Police, the intelligence chiefs, and of course the Honorable Lieutenant Governor. Then the same thing comes down, cascades down to the lower levels at the formation levels and goes down right till the brigades, where you have the SSPs and the brigade commanders meeting together. So at every level, there is some kind of an integrated setup. And there is an exchange of information, intelligence. This happens on a regular basis, almost on an everyday.
All right, sir, I'm interrupting you now because we've got images right now as we speak of the Home Minister Amit Shah with the Chief Minister of Jammu and Kashmir, Omar Abdullah, the Director General of Police and others. I think this is in Raj Bhavan. I would stand corrected on that. They would clearly be looking at the situation over there. They're all looking and understandably very, very somber, reflecting on this horrific terror attack which has taken place. Again, for the benefit of our viewers, at least 26 people are dead as a result of this horrific terror attack. They're all believed to be civilians. There may have been a couple of foreign nationals over there as well. The massacre took place in Pahalgam, which is a very busy tourist center. This is an area where there was a heavy police deployment. It's an area which hasn't seen a terrorist attack. It's also one of the sites from where pilgrims have gone to the Amarnath Yatra. This was the traditional route. The route is approximately 40 kilometers, the more difficult of the two routes, but it is a very important center indeed. I'm now joined by my colleague Nazir Masoodi, who is who is in Pahalgam, and I'm also joined by my colleague Aishwarya Jain. Let me go across to you. Nazir, we do know that 26 people, our sources telling us, have been killed in this attack. Do we have any word of the number of those injured?
Vishnu, I couldn't hear the question.
The number of people injured. Nazir, do you have an idea of the number of those injured?
Yeah, number of injured is more than a dozen, and condition of some of them is stated to be critical. And that is where the state government comes, elected government. And I spoke to Chief Minister a while back, and he said he has asked two ministers, including Health Minister, to personally monitor the treatment being given to the tourists, injured tourists. But the magnitude of this attack is clearly very, very horrible. This is a massacre. In fact, another Pulwama type attack, that time the security force were the target, and this time innocent tourists, at least more than 26, and two of them are believed to be foreigners also. So it is the people from different parts of the country and also foreigners. They were at Baisaran, this meadow, when terrorists in at least 3 to 4, they came in camouflage and they resorted to heavy firing. And since this evening, when I'm here since I think 4:30, I have only seen ambulances coming. The number of ambulances and the helicopter, these sorties could only tell you the magnitude of this tragedy. And clearly, those who targeted these innocent people wanted to send a message that tourists should not come here, because tourism was seen as a symbol of normalcy, prosperity, progress, and development in Kashmir. And this is what always government was talking about, giving number of the tourists, and they wanted to upset that sentiment. Already there are reports of these, booking cancellation by the tourists, because this has sent a very, very chilling message. And everybody feels to be very shocked here, what exactly has happened. And nobody had an inkling. In fact, just a few years back, Amit Shah was here in Jammu and Kashmir. He was in Srinagar. He reviewed security situation, but nobody has an inkling there could be such a horrible attack, that too in Pahalgam. And in fact, the whole focus was rather on Jammu, where we have seen frequent terror attacks and the encounters.
Yes, and not so much in the north. But hold on for a second, Nazir. Let me go back to General Hasnain. So I'm just looking at previous, tragedies. 2019 Pulwama, that was an attack on a paramilitary force, the CRPF. That resulted in the Balakot attacks, India counter-attacked. There was the 2000 Amarnath massacre, if you recall, where many people died. So civilians were targeted over there. And the 2024 Riyasi bus attack that took place last year, I think about 6 or 7 civilians died over there in that bus.
9 people were killed in that. There were 9 who died in that.
9 and do you
Riyasi
recall?
was 9 and 30 people were killed in the month of August 2000 at the CRPF camp, just outside the CRPF camp in Pahalgam itself also. So there's been a series of such incidents which have taken place in and around. I'd also remind you that Pahalgam was at the core center of the kidnapping incident in 1995 when the Al-Firan had kidnapped 5 foreign terrorists and taken them along this same route into the Baisaran Valley.
All right, let me just go quickly across. Jen will be with us, to my colleague Aishwarya Jain, who also joins us. Aishwarya, is there any word at this stage on what the Home Ministry is thinking, what the armed forces may be thinking? In terms of responses, we've seen the tweets from the Prime Minister and the Home Minister. Beyond that, is there anything that you have?
Well, there are a series of meetings that will take place overnight, which is very, very crucial. Extra deployment of security forces in and around the region of Pahalgam, and to provide as soon as possible the assistance as far as medical aid is concerned. The MHA has also stated to us that if required, there would be airlifting of those injured who are very critical at this point of time, and therefore the reason enough medical aid is to be delivered at this spot is some priorities of the administration, as Home Minister has been briefed by the Chief Minister of Jammu and Kashmir, Umar Abdullah, as soon as they have reached the Raj Bhavan over there, and there are now series of meetings that will take place to take control of the situation as soon as possible. Home Minister, if the situation is under control, might be visiting tomorrow the actual spot where the terrorist activity has taken place.
All right, I'm also joined by Major General Sanjay Meston, Dr. Tara Kartha with me as well, and General Hasnain remains with us. General Meston, let me come to you first. There was a spurt of terrorism in Jammu, in the greater Jammu area over the last couple of years. By and large, the situation in the valley and adjoining areas was better. With this attack, is there perhaps a message being sent that no part of Jammu and Kashmir is once again safe?
Vishnu, good evening. The message is from Pakistan. Very, very clear message that they want to destabilize India, and apparently the question what you have asked, obviously their targeting is more towards entire Jammu and Kashmir, and they are doing it across, whether it is Lalyali sector, whether it is Kathua sector. Now they have done it in the valley, of course in Pahalgam. So their strategy is very clear. Vishnu, it's a very, very serious concern for the country, and today let me be very candid. I think there will be lot of pressure on the Prime Minister of India and the Home Minister of India, because country will now look for an action. The question is, what action is possible? I do not hesitate to state that we have to firstly, what is the source of this? The source is Pakistan, and this General Munir, I think as a Pakistan Army Chief, the statements he has made were most ridiculous, that two-nation theory and religious issues and, jugular vein Kashmir. That shall not be acceptable. And Tawar Rana's statements also, if you recollect, Indians deserve it. I think now it is high time, Vishnu. Pakistan deserves it. Now, what are the possible actions I can state, or what are the possible options? Number one, I think India should immediately close the embassy in Pakistan. We should now cut off all diplomatic and all relations with them. We should raise this issue internationally. Luckily, Vice President Vance is also here. He should be also told, and I think all nations need to be on one frequency. But finally, it is India's battle. Recently also, you are aware, post 26/11, there were a large number of issues that India should have done something. That time the Prime Minister should have done something. I'm quite sure this time the Prime Minister will be under a lot of pressure from the country, not from politicians, from the people of India, especially when these bodies will go back to their respective states. So I think there will be a lot of pressure, and we need to do something. Now, besides the political and diplomatic isolation, military-wise, firstly, we need to reactivate the entire line of control. Many people may not agree. We should have total artillery fire and give full leeway to the Indian Army. Indian Army units are capable, special forces are capable of doing. Let them handle the issue. It should not be, they should go and strike wherever they feel like. Punitive actions are required. because it is the Pakistan army. They also deserve it. Indians cannot keep deserving it. This has now become a trend right from the parliament attack to 26/11. So many things have been happening. I, as an Indian and as an ex-soldier, really feel pain. Today is a time, and we need to be little unconventional. Today, General Atta Hussain would also agree we have paucity of troops. All these areas cannot be defended. There are large number of Indians in the hinterland. What we had as Wingate Chennai in Second World War. There are so many Indians in the country today who can be used from various agencies, so many activists. Let's send them to Kashmir in all these areas to at least, we train them under the army and deploy them in these such kind of sensitive and areas.
All right, General Meston, lots of key points. Let me go across to Imran Nabi, spokesperson of the National Conference. Imran, there would be many party workers, your affiliates over there on the ground in Pahalgam. They would have been first responders as well. Can you share any details with us of what they saw, what they heard, how they went to the assistance of people on the ground?
I think the first respondents of this horrific incident were the Kashmiris who went there and who tried to console. I mean, it's a tragic day for all of us. I mean, it's a black day for Kashmir, and it is an attempt to defame Kashmiris by such senseless attack. I mean, there is no justification to what has happened today in Pahalgam. I have no words to express my anger and my grief over this incident, and this should not have happened. Now that we are discussing, I'm sure that Government of India will take appropriate measures to first identify who the perpetrators are, if there are, and some decisive action has to be taken. I mean, this is something that has caused a lot of bloodshed, and it has finished tourism industry here. I mean, I was just going through social media, and there is already a trend going on of boycott Kashmir, which is very unfortunate. So it has caused us, apart from the damage that it has caused by losing so many lives, the industry which was coming back on foot after so many years. I mean, the situation was getting normal. The hotels were packed. There was normalcy on ground, and people from all over the country were coming and enjoying themselves here. And locals were happy because the hotels were booked, and the industry was getting revived. And suddenly this has happened, and we are back to square one. I feel as if we are back to 90s. It's a dark day for Kashmir and for Kashmiris. Yeah.
Dr. Talakarta, your thoughts, and perhaps you can reflect on the immediate diplomatic steps that India can take: shut down the embassy completely, all diplomatic ties need to end, and possibly reactivate the line of control. This is what General Meston was saying. Your thoughts?
I think you have no option but to reactivate the line of control. This is a horrendous attack. But Vishnu, I just wanted to say it's very puzzling. 15 years. You never had an attack like this. What has changed? So something is we still have to analyze. There's more stuff coming in. We need to wait. But the fact is that somebody is pushing you into an act of war. This is virtually an act of war. Someone is pushing you.
It is an act of war. It's as simple as that. Yeah.
Absolutely. So the intention is to push this whole thing further. That is the point. The point is your challenge is, one, definitely activate the line of control. Number two, your challenge is to control the narrative inside the country, so that they don't achieve what they are trying to do in terms of what the great Asim Munir said about Hindu Muslims being different. We don't need to go down that path. Number three is the fact that the nature of the attack shows this is entirely an outside operation. Locals will never support an attack in the tourist season. This is the height of tourist season, when they make the maximum amount of money. Amarnath Yatra is coming up. This is a group which has no local roots at all. So which means in turn it's a special operation. This is a special operation. Why it happened just days after General Munir talked about the whole Kashmir chest thumping which he did in Islamabad is something which we need to see. But I am just wondering, because Pakistan is normally very good at keeping the pot boiling just below the surface, and that's what they've done in the last decade. They haven't gone. This has gone beyond that. So there is something you're getting in terms
No, I
of...
think you raised some important points. General Hasnain is somebody who's fought, and all of you are, General Meston as well, but General Hasnain, who's fought against terrorists, the fact that, and I don't want to go into the details over here on this broadcast because it's potentially incendiary, but the way in which the massacre took place, the way it was systematically done, it just seems to suggest that it would perhaps not be done by locals. There is local sentiment for terrorism, it's always been there, but that what Tara talks about with a foreign hand, in other words, the direct involvement of either Pakistani terrorists or Pakistani forces or the two together is what this is pointing towards. Would you agree?
I largely agree with Dr. Tara Kartha, particularly on the FT hand, the foreign terrorist hand. There are estimated to be about 70 foreign terrorists both in Jammu and Kashmir. And they can keep moving up and down between the two areas. It's not that difficult. It takes a little time, but they keep moving from time to time. Whenever the pressure goes up, somewhere in the area of Rajouri, Poonch or in Kathua, the tendency is to try and shift into the valley. And the valley, no one wants to be actually in the valley because the valley, the grid is much stronger here and the targeting is much more focused. So that's one of the reasons why mostly things have been happening in Jammu all this time. But obviously the important aspect was to bring the narrative back into Kashmir. And that's where I completely agree with
to interrupt you, General Hasnain, once again, J.D. Vance, the US Vice President, has just reacted. Usha and I extend our condolences to the victims of the devastating terrorist attack in Pahalgam, India. Over the past few days, we have been overcome with the beauty of this country and its people. Our thoughts and prayers are with them as they mourn this horrific attack. This is the first reaction, I believe, from the United States, and it's come from J.D. Vance, who's over here. General Hasnain, just reflect on this. I'll bring Tara in as well. The US reacting, J.D. Vance over here.
I'm glad that it's come so early. I mean, of course, it had to come because he is in India at the moment, but this would be automatically the US response. This is how the response from the United States has mostly been when it comes to the context of any of the incidents which are part of the sponsored proxy war from Pakistan all this while. But let me reflect on one very important thing which Dr. Kartha had brought out, and that is it looks irrational as to why, when Pakistan has got a very, very active Western Front, two of its corps fully deployed, the frontier corps of the FC also completely deployed there, why would it want to shift the focus towards the east at this particular time? This is something which all of us are trying to debate in the strategic community at the moment in Delhi and elsewhere, but not finding answers so easily. Obviously, there's something behind it. It seems that the Balochistan issue is probably irking them to a great extent, and they think they link everything to India, which of course we know is not true. But this is what the problem, the narrative is, that since they are irked hugely by the incidents which have happened in Balochistan, they wanted to give it almost, you can say, in kind back to India in Jammu and Kashmir.
General Meston, let's look at three big anti-terror precedents, how India has reacted. The 2016 attack on the Uri army camp, it saw the surgical strikes taking place, right? Then there was the 2019 attack on the CRPF convoy. The response was the 2019 Balakot bombing which took place. In 2013, there were beheadings which took place, and there were retaliatory operations, perhaps even in Pakistan, occupied Kashmir. So there is precedent for strong Indian responses as well. And would you suggest that the way we've responded in the past gives us a clear idea of what's happening next?
Yeah, all options are there, Vishnu. Definitely response has to be there, will be there, I have no doubt. On all fronts, whether it is diplomatic, political, but coming onto the military front, I think reactivation of the line of control is essential. And I think this time, the Indian army should be given a full leeway. Wherever they want to hit, how they want to hit, let it be. They will be the ones who will hit it. And even if we want to use Air Force in some manner or even drone strikes, why not? We should do it, and we should be very clear. We should hit at all the terrorist bases, wherever these people are being moved from their terrorist camps or whatever it is, and especially the armed forces, we have got some ability to go and strike. Now, of course, small intrusions, small punitive actions are possible, And certain places along the line of control, we have very advantageous dominating heights. From there, we can do so many things. So all possible options are there, but I think this time the armed forces should be asked and be told, you do whatever it is, because we are capable. People from the armed forces are highly capable, and I
No,
think
I understand that, General Minister, but General Hasnain, my only sort of concern over here is the selection of targets. It's not always easy to do that. We may have military options, but when we talk about tactical strikes on launch pads, as we know, there are multiple launch pads that Pakistan uses for terrorists. We may or may not have a viable target immediately available. Standoff strikes on Pakistan-occupied Kashmir bases, that would begin a war. And escalation along the line of control, all of you appear to be suggesting that that's something that we can look at. Or covert intelligence-based operations in Pakistani-occupied Kashmir, if we were to go down that route, then there is visibility which might be missing. And over here you want to be seen to give a visible response. That's the same with deep cover intelligence operations as well. Then of course there's the entire maritime or the naval domain which we don't look at, and perhaps something which we should. In terms of the right choice, what in your mind is the way forward for us? Again, my point, General Hasnain, is that it's not easy to necessarily designate targets which actually send a hard-hitting message. There are so many of them.
See, Vishnu, as a military professional, I will not engage in any statements on what India will do militarily. That is up to the Chief of the Army Staff and the Prime Minister, the Defence Minister, as to what they ultimately do. I have the fullest confidence in them. All I can say is this is not a time in which India can afford to sit back and not respond. It will have to respond, and that aspect we leave the detail to all the professionals who are involved and are responsible for it. As to the ceasefire going up in flames, I'm not so sure that I agree with my fellow panelists. It's very easy for us to say this. No, let the ceasefire go up. The ceasefire will automatically go up. You will see. It will happen in a matter of days. You don't have to say it and you don't have to do it. It will happen on its own.
All right. Okay, thanks for all of those details. Imran Nabi, let me come across to you first. Next, tomorrow is going to be a new day. Obviously, India will be dealing with the fallout of this attack. We'll get a clearer idea of the number of people who've lost their lives. From a state government perspective, what can you do in helping the agencies deal with this situation? Imran, go ahead.
Yeah. Right now, it is Umar Saab has just received the Union Home Minister, and he's briefing him about the situation. And Umar Saab has clearly sent out a message to all the ministers. There are 2 cabinet ministers who are right now with the injured, and they are looking after all the necessary things that are to be given to the injured tourists. And our administration is completely perfectly ready to deal with any exigencies right now. And there are multiple number of hotlines that have been created in both Anantnag as well as in Srinagar district for all the tourists. If there is any need for them to contact administration, or both Srinagar as well as Anantnag, they have created hotlines within these 2 districts, so that if there is any exigency, tourists can contact them.
All right. Before I go back to Dr. Tara Karta, I'd like to just remind our viewers about what's taking place. 26 civilians, all believed to be tourists. There would likely be a few locals over there in Pahalgam, which is an area which tourists frequent, one of the most beautiful parts of our country, have been massacred today by terrorists. We know that at least 3 terrorists have been involved. They were believed to be in military camouflage. Tourists were separated, segregated, and then gunned down. A couple of foreigners might also be there among them. The army has been deployed, Rashtriya Rifles units have been deployed, the police already there, and they were deployed in the spot, in the area, broadly speaking. They would have been some of the first responders. The Home Minister Amit Shah is now in Srinagar. He's met the Chief Minister Omar Abdullah and the entire security grid, as it were. It's called a unified command. He would possibly be at the site where the terror attack took place tomorrow. There are several options available to India, from diplomatic to military, but I would suggest that nothing immediate would happen, that this is something which would involve a calculated decision. Which way India goes, we'll have to see. The reason we are talking about this at all is because, as I mentioned, there has been precedent in the past on India taking decisive military action in scenarios which some would suggest would be below what we have seen taking place in Kashmir today. J.D. Vance, the US Vice President, is in India as well. In just the last little while, he has responded saying that he extends his sympathies to the families of those who've lost their loved ones, and he's hit out at terrorism. So that's something that's taken place in the last little while. Dr. Tarakarta, anything that you'd like to add at this stage?
Yeah, I just want to say I would totally support what General Hasnain said. In contrary to what I myself said, any attack across the line, increasing the line of control, the attack, it works both ways. It's not just a one-way thing that you attack and they'll sit quiet. So that is problematic, and I completely support General Hasnain. The problem is that we, as a democracy, you have these pushes where you sometimes have no option but to go and attack, because the whole country will start boiling. So that kind of pressure is going to be there unless Pakistan tomorrow, and I would just act as an advisory to Pakistan says, we will bring the perpetrators to justice. If that happens, then there will be a dialing down. But meanwhile, this is, to me especially, it's tragic. I can't believe this has happened again in Kashmir. It's a terrible thing.
General Meston, there is often that knee-jerk reaction which always happens. I've seen it for decades, where we immediately say it is an intelligence failure which has resulted in this massacre. And that's stating the obvious. If we knew it was going to take place, then somebody would have prevented it. But we have a different system in place now. It's highly technology sensitive and imbibed. It involves foreign partners as well. It involves electronic warning systems. It involves very advanced communication systems, the ability to intercept, a much better technology along the line of control, etc., etc. So in terms of trying to figure out what went wrong, where would one start?
Vishnu, what has happened is, apparently these people have sneaked in from some parts of the line of control, or maybe even along from the IP, or even maybe from Nepal. It's a very porous border. So these people, firstly, we have infiltrated, but maximum chances are they have done it from the line of control. Now, what happens is an infantry battalion is deployed there for about 3 years. If it is higher altitude, then it is about 2 years. Otherwise, the rest of the areas, it is almost 2 years. Now, continuously, doing duties on ground. Sometimes, people also tend to be, I would not use the word casual, but, it's taken for granted that nothing is going to happen. And these people also across, they also see the routine, the patrolling pattern and everything, and therefore they start identifying what are the loopholes. Now, as far as the technology is concerned, despite the best of technology, it's happened Israel-Hamas, despite the best of technology deployed there, and that was a plain open border. The Hamas had infiltrated, and we know what havoc and destruction they caused. So technology is important, but then it cannot replace, obviously, the manpower. So that has to be much better now. And of course, intelligence, that is the most important thing, because, see, firstly, the start point is Pakistan. So our intelligence assets across in Pakistan, they have to be on the alert, always telling us what is happening. And I think from the Afghanistan front and the other front, we need to again have our assets there, because we are falling short of intelligence inputs as to from where they are likely to infiltrate, when are they going to infiltrate, which areas they are going to select, and what is their targeting. Now, even in this case, it may have happened, that even if they are 4 or 5 in numbers, they have come, they have done a detailed recce, something like what 26/11 happened. So that means there are some overground workers who are assisting them. There is no doubt in the Kashmir Valley, they have assisted them. They have guided them because if they apparently they are foreign trained terrorists. So who's taken them at the site? And even the area where they have killed that meadow area, definitely these terrorists would have been taken. They would have gone, and I think one of the best assets to give inputs now would be these porters and pony operators who would be going in the last 2 or 3 months so many times. They have to be asked, have they seen any change in pattern, some unusual movement?
Sure.
Because the local tourists would hardly go there.
All right, General Meston, hold on to that thought. In fact, I'd like to thank my panelists over here. I'm going to go back to NDTV's Nazir Masoodi, who's on the site. Nazir, what's been happening over there in the last little while? Are there more ambulances, more injured people being moved out of that area? Give us an idea of what's happening in Pahalgam.
Well, all the bodies have been brought to Pahalgam hospital, and the injured are also being shifted to different hospitals. And government has been trying their best to provide them best health care, best to save the lives. But it has been that there are chilling details what has happened. The men and women and children have been segregated. Men have been particularly targeted in this attack. There are reports two of the victims may be foreigners. But since officially nothing has been announced yet, neither names nor the total death toll in this. But what we know so far after Pulwama attack, this is the biggest, worst massacre in Jammu and Kashmir. And the magnitude of this attack is the number of ambulances, helicopter, sorties by the defense, these choppers, army choppers here at Pahalgam since afternoon. And then the response of the government, Home Minister coming all the way, meeting here with the Chief Minister, Lieutenant Governor, and other top officials to devise the response how to deal with this. Since the message of the terrorists was not just limited to Pahalgam, they wanted to send a much bigger message. So clearly response is going to be much bigger. Since, as I said, it is like Pulwama type attack, we know what was the response that time, and this attack has clearly come, rather this massacre, after recent statement by the Pakistani army chief when he talked about two-nation theory, when he talked about Kashmir being jugular vein of Pakistan, when he talked about Hindu-Muslim divide. And we have seen militancy was spreading in Jammu region, and the whole focus was how to eliminate militancy in that area or kill militants in that area. Kashmir was not the focus in that way because it was believed that the calm is actually peace. Perhaps somebody has mistaken it calm and mistook it for peace. Recently, Home Minister was here for 3 days. He held detailed security review meetings, but nobody had an inkling that there would be such an attack of this magnitude, where innocent people, until this morning, nobody had an inkling. Now that people are still trying to come to terms with the magnitude of the loss and this attack, and the way the people have been, asked their names, they have been segregated, then they killed. So clearly shows it appears to be a clear design. They were well prepared, and it's by all aspects what we are gathering. They were not local because the number of local militants is not even in 2 digits.
No, I think, Nazir, you raised a lot of very important points over here, and the fact that men and women were separated, as you say, and the attacks were carried out just sort of reflects how planned this all was. 26, Indian and foreign nationals, primarily Indian, they have been killed in one of Kashmir's worst massacres. In Pahalgam, a major tourist destination. There is an active effort right now to try and track the terrorists responsible for this. But for now, let's keep our prayers for those who are injured and are fighting for their lives. Let's hope that this number, the casualty count, doesn't go up.